My name is Akosua, and until recently, I thought I was just a simple fisherwoman in a quiet little village by the sea. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. That all changed the day my mother died. Before she took her last breath, she handed me a strange pendant. A heavy thing, shaped like a crest, with a glowing red gem in the middle. "Keep it safe," she whispered, her voice weak. "This will lead you to your destiny, but beware, the crown devours its own." I wanted to ask what she meant, but it was too late. She was gone. I clutched the pendant tightly, staring at it as questions flooded my mind. My destiny? The crown? What could she possibly mean? I decided to leave my village and find out the truth. The pendant had to mean something. Maybe it was connected to the royal family. My mother always said she had secrets, but I never thought they'd be this big. When I arrived in the capital city, I was overwhelmed by the size of the palace. It looked like a giant golden beast sitting at the top of the hill, towering over everyone. How was I ever going to get in? That's when I noticed a line of servants walking into the gates. They were carrying trays of food and baskets of clothes. I had an idea. I snuck into the line of servants and pretended to belong. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought someone would hear it, but no one stopped me. I was in. For weeks, I worked in the palace, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, and delivering messages. I kept my eyes and ears open, looking for clues. I wore the pendant tucked under my shirt, hidden from sight. One day, while cleaning the queen's chambers, I found something that made my blood run cold. A letter. It was hidden under a stack of books, and it had my mother's name on it. The letter said my mother had been banished by the queen herself. Banished. Why? What had my mother done to deserve that? I didn't have time to think because someone walked into the room. I stuffed the letter into my pocket and slipped out before they could see me. That's how I met him, Prince Kwame. He wasn't like the other royals. He didn't act like he was better than everyone else. He caught me sneaking out of the queen's chambers, and instead of turning me in, he just laughed. "What are you doing? Sneaking around like a thief?" he asked, leaning against the wall like he had all the time in the world. I got lost," I stammered. "Lost? In the queen's private chambers?" His smile was teasing, but his eyes were sharp, like he didn't believe me. "Be careful. If my sister catches you, she'll have you thrown out. Or worse." His sister. That must have been Crown Princess Alara, the one everyone whispered about. She was beautiful, powerful, and absolutely terrifying. Kwame and I kept running into each other after that. At first it was by accident, but soon it felt different. He started looking for me, finding excuses to talk. And I didn't mind. He was kind, and for the first time since I'd come to the palace, I didn't feel so alone. One night, during a grand ball, I decided to wear the pendant out in the open. I wanted to see if anyone would recognize it. It was risky, but I had to know. The moment I stepped into the ballroom, I felt eyes on me. A man, Lord Edric, one of the queen's closest advisors, stared at the pendant like it was a ghost. His face turned pale, and he hurried out of the room. I followed him, keeping to the shadows. He went down a hidden staircase, deep into the palace dungeons. My heart raced as I crept after him. I saw him unlock a vault using a key that looked just like my pendant. Inside, he pulled out a scroll. It was old and stained, like it had been hidden for years. I couldn't see what it said, but I knew it was important. Then he turned and saw me. "You!" he snarled. "Who are you? Where did you get that pendant?" I didn't answer. I ran. I didn't get far. The guards caught me and dragged me to the queen. When she saw the pendant, her face went white. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied me. "You're her daughter," she whispered. Her voice was filled with something I couldn't place. Fear, anger, or both. "Who?" I asked. "Whose daughter?" But she didn't answer. Instead, she shouted, "Take her to the dungeons. She dies at dawn."
I sat in the cold, dark cell, my heart pounding like a drum. I couldn't die here. Not before finding out the truth about my mother and the pendant. I ran my fingers over the engraving, whispering to myself, this can't be the end. That's when I heard the soft sound of footsteps outside the cell. A shadow appeared, and then... Kwame. What are you doing here? I whispered, my voice trembling. Saving you, he said with a sly grin. He held up a ring of keys and unlocked the door. Come on, before the guards notice. I didn't ask questions. I followed him through a maze of tunnels under the palace. The walls were damp, and the air smelled like mold, but I didn't care. Freedom was close. We emerged in the city's underground. A place filled with rebels, thieves, and those who had been cast out by the royals. Kwame led me to a safe house, where an old man greeted us with a knowing look. With Kwame by my side, I decided to return to the palace, this time to the vault where I'd seen Lord Edric. The old man told us the pendant wasn't just a clue, it was a key. We snuck back into the palace under the cover of night. My heart raced as we made our way to the hidden staircase. When we reached the vault, I used the pendant to unlock the door. Inside, we found stacks of old letters, maps, and scrolls. One scroll, in particular, caught my eye. It was stained with blood and sealed with the royal crest. I unrolled it with shaking hands and read the words that changed everything. The queen had poisoned the former king, her husband, and framed my mother for it. My mother had been the rightful heir to the throne, but the queen had her exiled to keep the secret buried. That's why she's afraid of you, Kwame said. If people find out the truth, she'll lose everything, I finished. Before we could escape, the door burst open. Crown Princess Alara stood there, flanked by guards. I knew you were trouble, she sneered at me. And you, she said, turning to Kwame, betraying your own family for her? She's more family than you've ever been, Kwame shot back. Alara smirked. Take them both to the throne room. Mother will want to deal with this herself. The throne room was packed with nobles and guards. The queen sat on her golden throne, her face calm, but her eyes full of rage. You just don't know when to quit, do you? She said to me. I stepped forward, holding the scroll high. I know what you did. You poisoned the king. You framed my mother. And you've ruled through lies and fear ever since. Gasps filled the room. The queen's mask of calm slipped for a moment before she laughed, a cold, sharp sound. Do you really think anyone will believe the word of a servant? She said. She's not just a servant, Kwame said. She's the rightful heir. The room erupted into chaos. Some nobles shouted in my defense, while others sided with the queen. As the chaos grew, Lord Edric stepped forward. Enough, he roared. He held up another scroll, one I hadn't seen before. This girl may have royal blood, but she's not the heir, he said. She's the daughter of a revolutionary who sought to destroy the monarchy. The room fell silent. What? I whispered, my head spinning. Your father was no royal, Edric continued. He was a traitor, and your mother hid the truth to protect you. My legs felt weak. Everything I thought I knew was crumbling around me. Before the queen could declare my fate, the doors to the throne room burst open. A crowd of commoners flooded in, led by the rebels from the underground. She speaks the truth, someone shouted. The queen is a murderer. The room descended into chaos as the crowd rebelled, demanding justice. After the queen had been dethroned and the rebellion succeeded, Alara and the queen were led away in chains by the guards. What now? Kwame asked. I thought about my mother's words, about the bloodstained scrolls. The crown had caused so much pain, maybe it was time to end it. I'm not here to take the throne, I said finally. I'm here to destroy it. I stood in the throne room, the crown heavy in my hands. The queen had been dethroned, her secrets exposed, and the people looked to me as their savior. But as I stared at the glittering crown, I felt a wave of doubt. Kwame stepped closer, his voice low. The people trust you. Akosua, you are their hope. I turned to him, my heart torn. But this crown, it destroyed my mother. It poisoned this kingdom. How do I know it won't do the same to me? Before Kwame could answer, Lord Edric spoke from the shadows. His voice was calm but sharp, like a blade hidden beneath silk. "You don't," he said, stepping forward. "The crown has a price, Akosua. And it will demand everything from you." I clenched the crown tighter, ready to declare my rule, but something in his tone made me pause. "What are you saying?" He smirked, his eyes gleaming with a secret I wasn't ready for. "Your mother didn't die because of the queen. She died because of me." Gasps filled the room as the truth hit me like a slap. "What?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "She was too powerful," Edric continued. "The rightful heir. The queen was weak, but she was useful. I needed her on the throne to keep control." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper only I could hear. "And now I need you. With you as queen, I can finish what I started." My blood ran cold. Everything, my mother's exile, the queen's crimes, even my rise to power, had been part of his plan. I looked around the room, at the nobles, the rebels, the guards. No one knew the truth, but me. Kwame's voice pulled me back. "Akosua, what's wrong?" I forced a smile, my mind racing. "Nothing," I lied. "I'm fine." I placed the crown on my head, my heart pounding. The people cheered, but their voices felt distant. I glanced at Edric, who gave me a knowing nod, and I realized that my fight was far from over. The crown was mine now, but so was the danger. Lord Edric thought he controlled me, but he had no idea who he was dealing with. I would wear the crown, play his game, and bide my time. Because one day, I would destroy him, and anyone else who stood in my way. As I stood on the balcony, waving to the cheering crowds, a single thought burned in my mind: to keep this crown, I must become what I fear the most. And for the first time, I wondered, would I survive the throne, or would it consume me like it had so many before?
If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe, so I'll be encouraged to create more stories like this. You might also want to try the one above. It's about a hairdresser who made a pact with a voodoo priest with the hair of her client. Thanks for watching.